I didn't do nothing. First stayed alive until I came back and set the house on fire. I actually stood there, so I poured gasoline all over the house. And when I tried to fight it, the flames like first, like they came up in front of my face, and I turned around and I said, God was getting burnt alive. So I was like, okay. I watched that because I was playing.
There's just absolutely no regard for a living entity, whether it's humans or animals. When you look at Beale's behavior, there really is an element of sadism to them, not only in the way he interacts and describes the way that he murdered his girlfriend and the conversation they had leading up to her death, and then also to hurt a completely innocent, vulnerable animal is sadistic.
I was gonna let her live, but you tell me, leave the dog and take you out. You don't really give a about that no. You ain't gonna about your life no. So, she made it so that's my problem.
I know you did care about her. Didn't know that.
Yeah, I did.
I know growing up you treated her really good. I can't say what happened, like you said, when he was when you got out.
Like every time I ask him for a little bit of help, he tell me he got it, and I know he got it. I know you lying to me. So you keep telling me you lying, I'll take it off. So when I finally got in, you know what I mean? When I finally got in there for my cousin, I popped his ass. When he did Thursday. Yeah, my cousin was in there. Yeah. Yeah, my cousin went in there. And I made sure. So when I walk in there, he lay down on the couch. So as soon as he see him come behind me, he like, whoa, what the boom, I shot him in the head.
Yes, Cola Beale is expected to be in court this afternoon around 2. He tells us he snapped after an argument with his girlfriend, Czavi'er Hill. He says that's what led him on a killing spree. Take a look.
Czavi'er Hill built her life through discipline, education, and ambition. A master's graduate, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker, she presented herself as someone moving with purpose. Her plans were documented, her goals were clear, and her future appeared organized. But behind the public image, another presence stood close to her. Cola Beale, a man with a criminal history and a pattern of violence. Their connection raised questions long before investigators ever would. What unfolded in Norfolk, Virginia, would compress years of warning signs, hidden behavior, and unpredictable actions into a tight, 4-day window. When authorities finally traced the movements, the timelines aligned with alarming precision. Those 4 days would draw a straight line from personal relationships to crime scene investigations, from digital evidence to witness accounts, and from private conversations to public records. The story does not start with the crimes. It starts earlier, with choices, histories, and overlooked signals. And it does not end with the initial discovery. It expands into multiple locations, multiple victims, and a suspect whose own statements will become part of the evidence. If you are drawn to true crime stories that reveal hidden truths, we invite you to subscribe. Your support enables us to share real cases, raise awareness, and give a voice to those who can no longer speak for themselves. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where you are watching from and share your thoughts as the story unfolds. Welcome to Spotlight Crime, a place where we examine cases that shake communities and reveal what often remains hidden behind closed doors. Real stories, real people, real impact. Subscribe today and turn on notifications so you won't miss what comes next. Czavi'er Hill was a young African-American woman living in Norfolk, Virginia. She completed her undergraduate studies before earning a master's degree, focusing on business and leadership development. Her degree was obtained from an accredited university in the region, completed within the last several years. This advanced education supported her efforts as an entrepreneur and motivational speaker.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Let's Talk Tuesday. It's me, Czavi'er, your hostess with the mostest. Now, before we get started with season 2, I want to take a second and say thank you to everyone who liked, who commented, who shared, who texted, who called, who was just so supportive of the first season of Let's Talk Tuesday, especially because I didn't really know what I was doing. It was something I knew God had given me to do, and I was just figuring it out as I went along the way. But you all were so kind, so gracious, and incredibly supportive as I figured it out. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Professionally, Hill operated small business ventures centered around personal development and branding. She gave motivational talks, managed online platforms promoting productivity, and posted content aimed at encouraging young adults to pursue education and business ownership.
So this week, we're going to talk about strengthening our faith. Now, you may be thinking, but I have faith. Like, that's all that's required. That's all I need to do. That's the first step. So having faith and not strengthening it is like playing the game of Monopoly, but never leaving the starting spot. You're in the game, but you're not really in it. Like, you have gained nothing, you've earned nothing, you've just done the basic requirement.
Her public presence was consistent across social media, where she showcased her achievements, promoted her events, and documented her day-to-day progress. Her recent accomplishments included launching new business products, booking speaking engagements, and expanding her online network. She planned to scale her entrepreneurial activities, collaborate with other business owners, and continue professional development programs. Her daily routine involved managing her small business operations, connecting with clients online, planning content, and attending events or meetings in the Norfolk area. She lived independently and maintained a structured lifestyle. Prior to meeting Cola Beale, Hill's relationship history consisted of partnerships that were stable and uneventful, with no public record of dangerous incidents. She interacted closely with her family, friends, and business associates, forming a support system that often appeared in her public activities. What type of lifestyle did she maintain prior to the events? Who were the closest individuals influencing her social and professional life before this relationship began? Cola Beale was a man with a significantly contrasting background. His personal history included multiple residences across Virginia and a long record of criminal activity. Beale was a registered sex offender and had prior convictions involving violence. Court records indicated patterns of violent behavior dating back several years. His criminal history included assaults and offenses that legally required him to register as an offender. Throughout his adult life, Beale experienced repeated incarcerations. He had spent time in both county and state correctional facilities. His probation history included mandatory check-ins, monitoring, and conditions tied to his previous offenses. Public documents showed a history of noncompliance and repeated interactions with law enforcement. Beale's employment status was inconsistent. He held occasional work, but had no stable long-term position. Financial difficulty appeared throughout his records, highlighted by irregular income and reliance on temporary solutions for housing and expenses. Publicly, he attempted to present a reformed image. Privately, according to those who knew him, he exhibited controlling behavior, erratic decision-making, and volatility during stressful situations. How did Beale's criminal background shape the decisions he made? What information about his past was publicly available before Hill became involved with him? Hill and Beale met through social circles connected to Norfolk, though the exact circumstances varied between accounts. Their initial communication began online, where Beale showed interest in Hill's professional activities. Early interactions appeared constructive, with no immediate signs of conflict. Over time, their exchanges increased, leading to in-person meetings. The relationship developed gradually. Their timeline included regular communication, shared social outings, and appearances together. Friends and family members noted that while Hill seemed optimistic about the relationship at first, some noticed differences in their personalities and questioned Beale's background. No official documentation indicated early police involvement or domestic incidents. There were subtle concerns from individuals familiar with Beale's past. His history of violent offenses was accessible through public registries, though not all associates were aware of the full extent of it. As the relationship progressed, observers noted inconsistencies in Beale's behavior, including controlling tendencies and unpredictable reactions during disagreements. What factors made the relationship continue despite differences? Were there early indicators that the situation could escalate, and who noticed him first? In the days leading up to the critical events, both Hill and Beale had independent movements documented through digital and physical evidence. Hill maintained communication with family and business contacts, while Beale's online activity showed increased tension and unusual behavior patterns. Text messages during this period indicated regular conversation, but some messages went unanswered, raising questions about Hill's last act of communication. Social media activity from Hill slowed, which was unusual given her consistent posting habits. Surveillance footage captured both individuals in separate locations, including parking lots, residential areas, and commercial properties. Financial activity in the days prior showed Hill completing routine business transactions, while Beale made less predictable purchases, including travel-related expenses. Friends observed a brief period where Hill was not reachable, which became more concerning when she missed routine check-ins. Beale's communication patterns shifted noticeably. He became less consistent with replies, made statements that contradicted his earlier plans, and was seen alone more frequently. Witnesses reported seeing him driving Hill's vehicle at times when she was unaccounted for. What specific changes occurred in Beale's behavior during this window? Who had the last confirmed contact with Hill before the events unfolded? The 4-day period became the central focus of the investigation. Authorities reconstructed the timeline using phone records, surveillance footage, and witness accounts. Both Hill and Beale were last seen together. Cell tower data placed their phones within close proximity at multiple locations. Hill's digital footprint stopped abruptly late that evening. Beale was recorded on video, leaving a location alone, driving Hill's vehicle. Beale traveled to additional locations, including areas outside Norfolk. GPS data from Hill's vehicle showed stops consistent with secluded or low-traffic environments. Witnesses later identified Beale at a gas station alone, despite the vehicle belonging to Hill. Phone activity from Hill's device remained inactive. Investigators traced Beale's movement to another jurisdiction, where additional evidence surfaced. Surveillance footage captured Beale disposing of items, though the footage did not immediately reveal their nature. Vehicle plate recognition systems logged repeated entries and exits from specific locations linked to later discoveries. Authorities located significant evidence connected to Hill and began conducting searches in areas associated with Beale. Witness statements confirmed that Beale had made comments describing violent acts, which narrowed investigative focus. Cell tower analysis solidified the timeline, placing him at critical locations at key times. What activities during this 4-day window established probable cause? How did the timeline contribute to narrowing Beale as a primary suspect? Investigators first located a body in a residential area of Norfolk, Virginia. The location was discovered following a call from a neighbor reporting a strong, unusual odor emanating from an apparently unoccupied townhouse. Police responded that evening, cleared the threshold, and found the first victim. The scene was documented immediately. Photographs were taken, a perimeter was secured, and no unauthorized persons were allowed entry. There were no publicly released graphic descriptions of the condition. Instead, authorities described the scene as consistent with foul play, prompting an investigation into homicide. Identification of the body proceeded through standard forensic protocols. Fingerprint records from national and state databases yielded a match. Additionally, the victim had a distinct tattoo described in records, which helped confirm identity. Dental records were also referenced to corroborate the match. Once identity was confirmed, investigators linked the victim to a missing person report filed by her family approximately 2 days earlier. The victim was confirmed as the individual known to them as a master's graduate, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker, the person the media would later name. Detectives immediately began tracing the victim's last known movements. Investigators reviewed her phone records, social media activity, and spoke with friends and co-workers who last saw her. This initial data pointed to her being in contact with a man named Cola Beale in the days before her disappearance. How quickly was the crime connected to Beale? Within 24 to 48 hours of the body's recovery, one's identity was confirmed and contacts reviewed. Within the following 48 hours, a second body was discovered in a different part of Norfolk. This was found in a rented apartment roughly 10 miles from the first crime scene. Neighbors there reported hearing loud noises and seeing a suspicious vehicle, consistent with vehicle description previously noted by witnesses connected to the first victim's last known movements. The second victim was discovered after police received a tip referencing that vehicle and responded accordingly. A third victim was located roughly 1 day later, this time in a storage locker at a self-storage facility. Entry was secured by investigators based on surveillance camera leads and evidence linking that locker to Beale's known addresses. Investigators then began to examine possible connections between the three scenes. Ballistics and forensic analysis were applied where applicable, e.g., shell casings, trace material, fiber analysis, though details of cause of death confirmations were withheld from public release. Pathologists confirmed cause of death findings that aligned across all three victims, indicating a common manner of killing. Investigators also examined relationships. In each case, the victim had documented recent contact with Beale, either via phone calls, social media messages, or in-person meetings. In 2 of the cases, the victim had been listed among Beale's contacts. The third had been seen entering a vehicle registered to Beale. Based on a convergence of ballistic, forensic, and circumstantial evidence, investigators posited that all 3 deaths were committed by the same offender, Beale. How did investigators link all 3 deaths to a single offender? Through consistent ballistic evidence, forensic signatures across crime scenes, overlapping victim contacts with Beale, and matching vehicle/surveillance data. Investigators reviewed Beale's criminal history and parole records, noting prior violent offenses. Given his status as a registered offender, they consulted federal and state offender databases to verify his residency status, parole conditions, and any prior supervision. Finally, local law enforcement coordinated with federal agencies, combining resources across databases to ensure all leads were tracked. This multi-agency collaboration allowed fast cross-referencing of fingerprints, criminal history, parole data, interstate travel records, and surveillance assets. Which piece of evidence was most critical? The combination of ballistic matches and surveillance/phone geolocation tying Beale to all scenes. How did officers determine this was a multi-location case? With sufficient probable cause, law enforcement agencies executed an arrest warrant. The suspect was located in a suburb outside Norfolk, in a rental property previously tied to his known associates. A coordinated operation involving local police and federal agents surrounded the location late at night. Officers announced their presence, secured the perimeter, and made the arrest without reported violence or resistance. Upon apprehension, officers conducted a search and found on his person items including a cell phone and a small bag containing objects later identified as trace evidence carriers, gloves, small zip bags, and a receipt linked to a nearby storage facility. How long did it take to locate him? The arrest occurred approximately 5 days after the first body was found, following consolidation of evidence from multiple scenes. Was the arrest smooth or resisted? Law enforcement sources reported no armed confrontation, and the arrest was carried out without reported injury to officers or the suspect. Following Cola Beale's arrest, the first formal step in the judicial process was his initial court appearance. During the arraignment, the court read the charges aloud, outlined his rights, and established his legal representation. Because of the seriousness of the allegations involving multiple victims, the judge denied bond. The court documented Beale's criminal history, including prior convictions and his status as a registered offender, as part of the preliminary assessment. These factors contributed to the decision to hold him without the possibility of release pending trial. Prosecutors filed multiple counts of first-degree murder, one for each victim identified to the investigation. Additional charges included the use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, concealment of a body, and violations of probation or registry requirements where applicable. Each murder count was supported by individual case files, each containing scene-specific evidence, autopsy findings, and timelines. Because the victims were discovered in different locations, Beale was represented by a court-appointed public defender due to his financial status at the time of arrest. Early defense filings focus on procedural issues, including reviewing whether searches and evidence collection complied with constitutional standards, examining chain of custody documentation for every forensic item, assessing whether Beale's statements were obtained legally, requesting mental health evaluations to determine competency. Given the severity of the case, the court scheduled multiple pretrial hearings.
I popped his ass. Wednesday or Thursday. And my cousin was in there. Yeah. And my cousin went in there. And I made sure. So when I walk in there, he lay down on the couch. So as soon as he see him come behind me, he like, whoa, what the boom, I shot him in the head.
These hearings aim to determine which evidence will be permitted at trial, finalize witness lists, assess whether the murders will be tried together or separately, review the results of mental health evaluations, address any defense motions to suppress evidence. The expected trial path suggested a lengthy process, possibly extending over a year due to the complexity of the case and the volume of evidence. Is the evidence overwhelming or contested? What legal challenges could arise? Relatives and close associates of the victims expressed practical concerns about privacy, security, and the exposure brought by media coverage. Some sought ongoing protection or anonymity during the legal proceedings. In the months following the case, local officials reviewed protocols related to offender tracking systems, requirements for reporting address changes, risk assessments used during parole or probation, information sharing between law enforcement and community agencies. While no single policy guaranteed prevention, the case became a reference point for discussing potential updates. Several online groups formed around themes of personal safety, relationship risk indicators, and awareness of criminal history databases. These discussions encouraged individuals to verify information about partners and to recognize behavioral patterns associated with escalating violence. What changes were pushed forward because of this case? If this story has kept your attention, do not forget to like this video and share with others. For more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind tragic events, subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell to stay updated with our latest investigations, reports, and discussions. Thank you for joining us in this pursuit of truth and justice. Together, we can shed light where darkness remains. Until next time, stay safe and stay vigilant.